What's up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to show you how an influencer scam works and how they persuade you to get you to buy things from them using very specific persuasion techniques. And up today, we have a gentleman called Bryan Johnson, and Bryan Johnson is a legitimate entrepreneur. He once created and sold a company for around about 800 million. He has now moved on to the health, wellness, longevity, anti-aging space as well. And what he's doing is he's breaking down the marketing of other companies and how they hook you in and get you to buy. And I thought I'd react to this video because there's a lot of persuasion elements in it that other companies do. Bryan is doing his own persuasion elements in this video, by the way, to get you to, buy his stuff as well. But he's got a better argument than these other companies which are also trying to get you to buy. So let's take a little look at what he's saying. Today he's calling out Athletic Greens, which sponsors a lot of huge influencers. Joe Rogan, it sponsors Andrew Huberman, all these guys that you heard of, they always do a shout out for Athletic Greens on the podcast. But is this stuff actually great for you to take? Let's find out what Bryan says.
DrinkAG1.com. AG1 by Athletic Greens.
Athletic Greens. It appears to be a supplement of some kind.
This episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. F that. Friends, we know the world is up. Everywhere we turn, somebody is trying to do something to get you. When you turn to those who presumably have your back, it's important they do. AG1, a nutrition company, surely has your back, don't they? I'm now in the food business. Whether I like it or not, I've built Blueprint to try to help other people have the same nutrition that I do. I know I can make this product for less.
So for you guys who don't know, he has done all this crazy diet and measured himself with biomarkers and bloods and all this stuff to try and reduce his speed of aging. It's fascinating stuff if you actually look into it. But what he's done as part of that is a lot of people are like, well, look, I haven't got the time to follow this diet and, cook 100 frigging kilograms of broccoli per day. Can you, Bryan, basically take this stuff that actually works and put it into supplements and an easy to use routine? So that's what he's been doing over the last few years.
Less than $10. That's the cost of the actual ingredients. They sell it for $99 for a single purchase. That's a lot of margin to play with, from 10 as a cost to 70 at your door.
So first of all, he's saying it's incredibly overpriced. Now, what do we know about products which are high priced? People have a tendency, it's called the anchoring bias, to view something as more valuable the higher the price is. So for example, if I was to sell you a product which had two price points, right, but you didn't know about either of the price points. One of the price points was $50, the other price point was $5,000. And I was to ask you what you thought was more valuable, even though the product's exactly the same, you just didn't know the two price points. You would probably read the description of each of those products and think to yourself, oh, you know what? Actually, that 5,000 product, I feel like I want that. Maybe I can't afford it right now, but I do want that more than the $50 products because I just think it's going to be more valuable because the price in your head has been anchored to that high price equals better value. And we can see that Athletic Greens are doing exactly the same thing here. What they're selling in that packet is just not worth the $99 price that it's commanding at the moment. It's actually, the ingredients are much lower priced, lower quality than what they're actually selling it for. So let's move on with the video.
The point is, AG1 is not what it's hyped to be. It's overpriced, it's overpromised, and it does not deliver the value you think it's delivering.
This is a huge part now, influencer marketing. Watch this.
There's several other things you should be aware of. First is their insane marketing strategy. We all have trauma from hearing that advertisement every day, all day, from every influencer.
AG1 works. DrinkAG1.com. AG1 works.
By the way, Bryan, in case you haven't noticed, I want you to comment below for what you can spot in this video. Is doing his own persuasion here. Comment below if you can see the methods that he's using to persuade you.
AG1 works.
Now, to understand what's going on, is they pay influencers between 20 and 30% every time you buy their product. Not just once, but in a recurring fashion. That means if 31,000 of you subscribe to my AG1 influencer link, I'm going to make $500,000 a month per month in perpetuity. That would only take.
So think about that. You have huge figures like Joe Rogan, Andrew Huberman, who every now and again do a shout out for Athletic Greens. We've got Andrew Huberman particularly as a, I think he's a neuroscientist. He's considered basically an authority in the science space. And then when he does a shout out for some sort of supplement, right, you think, well, based on his credentials and his depth of knowledge in the world, I perceive him as an authority figure. And he is giving a shout out for Athletic Greens, which must mean it works. Do you see how this train of thought works? So this principle in psychology and persuasion called authority bias. And what authority bias is we have a tendency to comply and be obedient to people who are perceived authority figures or perceived experts, right? So if a doctor was to tell you to take, these 3 vitamins, any random vitamins, you would more likely comply with them and listen to what they say, as opposed to if it was just your friend telling you to take these 3 different vitamins, because the doctor is an authority figure, is an expert, and we have a tendency to believe them and comply and think everything's going to be all right because they know what they're talking about. It's a human shortcut in thinking. So we have huge influencers which we look up to, which we hear regularly. We have that liking bias towards them, and then they turn around and they say, you need to take this supplement. We perceive them as an authority, but really on the back end, they are being paid in heavy commissions. 30%, a big commission for this company. So you've got to think, are they incentivized to actually just say this is a good product? Because we all know, as much as everyone doesn't like to admit it, money talks, right? People are interested in money. As much as it's a taboo subject, people are interested in money. Money does, unfortunately, make the world go round. So they are getting paid. Now, has that influenced their opinion to be not objective, right? Is it now a subjective opinion that this stuff is working, or are they just interested in the money?
It made 2 months to make $1 million. This is why it's so hard to trust those giving the recommendations. Now, if I'm an influencer, what does that cost me to read a script for 30 seconds? And I start racking up this money, and now I'm making millions of dollars a year just by simply repeating a thing again and again, which we all again suffer trauma from. Follow the money and you find wisdom.
Exactly right. Follow the money and you find wisdom. So there is an amazing book by Charlie Munger. It's called Poor Charlie's Almanac. And Charlie Munger's a very smart guy. He's made billions and billions. He was Warren Buffett's business partner before he sadly passed away. Very, very smart guy. And one of the things he recommends in the book is to find the truth of things and to find out what's really going on in the world. Look at where the incentives are. And we can see the incentives here is a huge monetary incentive to promote Athletic Greens, particularly on like a big podcast. If you think like what Joe Rogan, he gets, by the way, I like Joe Rogan. I like Andrew Huberman as well. But if you think about it, these guys get paid a huge percentage of $99, so 30%. They do a shout out to their average podcast listeners, which are probably over 1 million, right? In a month, way over 1 million. And there is 1% of that audience that buys. So 1% of 1 million is 10,000. And now we do 10,000 times by $30 because that's the 30% of the 99. Just straight there is 300 grand that they get paid for it. Now you got to think in their heads, does the 300 grand which they're going to get paid, I've just made that number up based loosely on the figures there, but is that more important to them than actually feeling good? And more importantly, because they know they're going to make that money, are they actually placeboing themselves, right? They're taking this Athletic Greens and thinking, you know what, I actually think I do feel a little bit better, when their psychology knows that actually I'm going to get paid for promoting this, so I better like it. Human psychology is very complicated. It's very complex. It's not black and white. It's shades of gray all over the place. There's another bias as well called mere association bias, and it's what I was talking about before. It's that when you see an authority figure who recommends something and they then recommend something else. So for instance, you have a lipstick which is being sold by Kim Kardashian because you perceive Kim Kardashian as likable and an authority in some sort of space of looking good or being into fashion and things like that. That authority then transfers onto that product as well. So we are more likely to associate both of those items or figures with each other because we know that one of them has authority. So it gets a transfer of authority. Hope I'm describing that well. Persuasion is a bit of a complex subject, but I know you guys like it, so I'll do my best to try and break it down. So we know there's a bunch of things going on there. You have people who you like, who you're more likely to comply with. You have authority figures telling you to buy something who we know you're more likely to comply with. We also, as well, have mere association bias, which is when something is perceived as valuable, that value or that authority gets transferred to their recommendation as well. So we perceive Andrew Huberman's advice as valuable. He recommends athletic greens, and now we perceive athletic greens as valuable as well. It's mere association bias. Okay, guys, so let's continue with the video.
Problem number 3 is pixie dusting. That means they list an ingredient that you may be familiar with and you think it's good for you. But instead of giving you the amount that was shown to work in the clinical trial, they give you a much lower amount. And so the benefit is, if you look at the AG1 nutritional panel, you see a bunch of words like, I know this and that, this sounds good, that looks great. But the problem is they're giving you doses that are insignificant. They'll tell you things like a biotin, which is 330 mcgs, very clean. But then they have this entire other section that has proprietary blends where they have these long paragraphs of ingredients. You don't know how much of each blends where they have.
Yeah, so just look at the keywords here. We've got nutrient dense extracts, herbs and antioxidants. We've heard all of those words separately. Nutrient dense extracts, herbs and antioxidants. We know that that sounds like it's good for us as well. So they've used something there called the anchoring bias, in which we know we have positive associations with those words. And because we have positive associations with those words, we are likely to think it's going to help us as well. Because this, what he's saying here, doesn't actually have any of the actual amounts which is contained within it. So it could have amounts within this section which you take it and it's not actually going to help you in any way because the doses aren't enough, because they've taken 20 ingredients and just says, oh, this 20 ingredients is 2.7 grams, right? It's not said, well, this ingredient here has got 100 milligrams, blah, 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 blah. So they've kind of found a hack in human behavior where they know we'll read through this list and think, oh, that sounds good for you. But we don't actually know if it is actually good for you measured by science because we don't know if the amounts are enough. Get it?
These long paragraphs of ingredients. You don't know how much of each ingredient is in the product. In fact, of the ingredients the AG1 has, 49 do not have a disclosed dose of the ingredient you're taking. So you look at the top, they do have doses disclosed here. The bottom, where they have these long paragraphs, you do not know what you're putting into your body. That is insane. Let's go back to the original question. Where do we find refuge? Before we do that, this episode is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I'm going to tell you my perspective. I am in the food and supplement business. I never imagined.
So what he does then is he pitches his own products, which, by the way, is highly persuasive because he's created a counter argument why you shouldn't go with other people. This is persuasion is very, very good if you can provide a counter argument. But Bryan has done a lot of other different persuasion elements in this video of his own, and I want you to try and point them out, see if you can spot them, and put them in the comments below. But what I do want to say here is that this is a great example of where basically marketing and persuasion have been done to get you to buy something. But when we actually dig in, maybe that thing that you're buying isn't that isn't that good for you. But there is a bunch of cognitive biases and different persuasion points which have triggered in your brain, which have caused you to, make shortcuts in your decision making. It's made you basically not take a step back and, you know, evaluate objectively. You've just made a decision because you're like, if this person likes it and it's got these type of ingredients on the back, which we don't know the amounts for, and this person is recommended, who I view as an authority figure, to buy this, and we've got all these people recommending it, which is creating that social proof. It creates this cocktail of this huge marketing campaign, which is very successful, right? But people don't often stop to think objectively, like, why is this working? Why am I buying this? But I'm tearing apart Athletic Greens here because I think Bryan Johnson has done a good job of breaking that down. But what I would say is these persuasion tactics that I've talked about, they are all over the place. If you are in business and you are going to buy a new software, you will have likely experienced these different biases. If you are, you know, going to buy some sort of course, you will have heard people you respect recommend other people that you should listen to. And because of that, you get that transfer of authority onto them as well. So you start automatically listening to those. And we think that the thing is about persuasion, and this is what's so controversial, is the studies which have been done on persuasion, most people think, even after they've been asked afterwards, you know, why do you think you made that decision in that study? They think they've objectively made that decision. So we can't really tell on a day-to-day basis where we're being persuaded. We believe we are in control of our own decisions. And because of this, it's very, very hard to spot these tactics. We get persuaded to choose option A, and we think to ourselves, I think I want to pick option A, right? Because I don't like option B because of X, Y, and Z reason, and I like option A because of A, B, and C reason. Right? Not knowing that we've had lots and lots of persuasion pressures on us. So really great persuasion tactics. Hopefully this video lets you protect yourself from some of these persuasion tactics where they aren't going to help you with good outcomes. And let me know what elements of persuasion you think Bryan Johnson is himself using in this video below. Okay, take it easy guys. See you later.